We started really the product from a compliance and regulatory banking background, right? And with our leadership team, they came from the traditional market of banking and finance and understood all the regulations and all the compliance that was required. And they thought, all this regulated market, there's a huge opportunity that's there. Cannabis seems to be the one that's like the fastest that's growing of all the regulated markets. That's more acceptable, but it's not all the way out there. That from a compliance perspective, it's about providing the visibility to the banks, right? So that's the back end of our compliance of our platform, which helps you understand the front end of the consumer side. So from the back, the banks that are our partners that use Hypur, they're actually able to one make sure that the merchant they're signing on is compliant because we provide all of the ticks and ties to this. Is this what they're doing? Are they legal? Do they have everything, all their certifications, so that the bank has now a merchant in front of them saying, I want to open up a bank account that's already gone through Hypur compliance, right? Which is tied at the hip with the banking compliance, so that way they can accept that merchant coming on. So now the merchant has a bank account. Now when they start selling, like you can use CBD as an example, they start selling CBD in a CBD only state, we're able to see and to provide the flags to the banking institutions to say they are not compliant because some THC product was there or something that they shouldn't be selling is in there. So is using Hypur to transact from a banking and a merchant perspective is the transparency that you need to legitimize it, right? So the revenue that's coming in is a revenue that's being deposited through the product that these guys are supposed to be selling and have a license to sell. So that was the start. And then from there, we moved on from the merchant side. The biggest part of this whole space is obviously the consumer, right? And how the consumer can pay. So what we have today is we have a way that's truly contactless. So you take your phone, you download the app. I don't know if you saw it, but you're able to download the app. When you download the app, you do have to put in your date of birth. You do have to put in your last 7 of your social, as well as tie it into your bank account. And the reason why we have all that information, that for some people it's bothersome and it's intrusive, it's because it's legal, it's transparent, and it's something that we want to help to legitimize, right? How your money is being spent, how your money is being transacted, how the banks are seeing it, how the merchants are reporting it. So that now that you've got the Hypur app, when you go in, you check into the store. So you'd say, okay, I'm here. And then they'll go through, you pick out whatever products you want. And then what you're able to do is you have your own personal, so it's a double authentication, right? Not just your email or your number. You're able to enter in your PAC, which is your personal access code that you've set up. So that way you can say, okay, great. Yeah, this is the amount. Sure. I enter in my PAC on my phone. I hit enter and you're paid and you're done. So you're not putting in a card today, even though that's what traditional consumer behavior is. You're doing everything on your phone. So you don't have to touch, transact, or do anything, right? You can do it in store. You can do it on your porch, as we call it, that if you put in an order online and you realize you don't have enough cash or you don't want to use cash, you're able to use Hyperpay. You're able to put in the tip for the delivery person, which is important, right? And then you're able to transact, and you're off and you're going, and then it's a direct pull from your bank account.
And so, is Hypur able to work with all banks, Wells Fargo, Chase Bank?
It's typically more of it's the banks that are providing the merchant service are really more of your smaller boutique banks, because the larger ones are still not able to or ready to work in this space. But we are able to extract from any consumer bank, right? If they have a bank account, I've got Wachovia, I can go ahead. It's an EFT and it's a pull, right? What is needed is obviously I've got to be in state where it's federally or it's state legit to be able to do it.
And so, with all the restrictions that we have on banking, what do you think, like maybe the 5-year timeline is on this?
From a banking perspective, I think you're going to see that more people are open to it, right? I think that what we're seeing right now, it's more of the credit card networks that are not as open, right? So think your Visas, your MasterCard. they're not as open to play in this space, um, because it's not, it's still federally illegal, right? It's not completely widely accepted. And so then what would happen to mainstream? I think that will change over time, but I see the banking institutions jumping in first before the credit card networks jump in, right? Because I think what you're going to see and what we're hoping to show the market and people is that you are able to have the products and the platform that do provide you the visibility into your transactions. That, to be honest with you, today's processing companies, financial processing companies, don't have the ability to do in the mainstream, right? They could do it, but if you think about your traditional markets and banks, and payment infrastructure, it's all mainframe, right? It's all old. I don't want to say old school because then I make myself sound old, but it's built on different technology. And today, in today's technology, right, it's completely changed, right? It's more cloud-based, it's very secure, it's very flexible, it's very scalable. And so that's why we're able to provide it in a way of an infrastructure that is safe and is scalable versus the amount of dollars that would need to happen to, say, a First Data or someone else, to be able to provide the services that we do today. But, I think they'll go there. I don't know how you can't
Right.
not go into a space when consumers are asking for it, when it's providing jobs, when it's providing a lot of, tax benefits to the states, and helping recoup a lot of what we've all lost in COVID, right? Financially.
And growth in this industry is inevitable, and so that is just something that's in line to happen. One of the questions I wanted to ask you was, when I think of CBD, I think of consumer products. We know that there's friend and there's foe. There's snake oil, and then there's legitimate products. I feel like there are so many companies, uh, not so many, but there are a lot of cashless payment solutions. There's scams. I feel like there's scams out there. What can people look for? Either entrepreneurs in the industry that are creating a budding business, or even consumers that are looking for this cashless option. What are some of the key things that people need to be aware of?
Yeah. So you talked about before, going into a store and using your card. So that is more of the reverse ATM. You go in, you get some money, you get a receipt, you do whatever. Um, from a consumer perspective, if you walk in and the store is saying we take MasterCard and Visa, no, because MasterCard and Visa, it's all publicly available information. They do not play in this space today. So you have seen, PR that's out there of companies that have actually falsely transacted or said that they were using MasterCard and Visa. And that's because they might be using their rails in their network, but they weren't fully compliant and transparent as to what they were using their network for. Right. So that for sure is one. The other one is the double authentication, right? When you go in and you're not just linked, you're not linked by an email, you're not linked by your phone number. You actually have an authentication code that you have to put in, which means you're the only one that should have that code. Everything else is publicly available except for that PAC number, right? Because that's what you personally set up. So I think that way is one way for a consumer to realize I'm the only one who knows this information. And so my transaction is legal because I'm approving it, right? And the visibility that they get. I think from a merchant, you've just got to be sure that you understand if there's other companies that are offering these payment services, but how transparent are they with you, the merchant, with the consumer, and then with the banking institution,
Mhm.
right? And I think that that's the key to what we do is that full ability of here's the space, here's what we're doing, the compliance, everything that we have to do, and then the way that we've actually built the product and the solution.
And you mentioned the company started in 2014. Have you seen a lot of progress in this area since then over the last 6 years, or is it really slow to grow?
Gosh, it depends on which space. So I come from the traditional market technology background, right? Um, you I am seeing, and I've been in cannabis now, it's probably going on 2 years. So what I bring with me is I understand the traditional market and what that technology looks like across the various different business lines in the technology that's needed to support the business. What I'm seeing now is we have a lot of overlap. So you get a lot of people out there that are overlapping in the feature and functionality that they're trying to provide, whether it's to the consumer or to the merchant or to the bank. So I think the ones that are going to come out, the winners on that, are the ones that actually are able to adapt to the change, because this market is the craziest market I've ever worked in, because it's like speed of light, right? Things change, plus just so many other anomalies that, you think about the demographic. You were talking about your mom, right? I mean, there's the whole range from 18 on up that use this product in medical, recreational. The data is so hard to slice and dice, and you can't say that okay, fine, I found it, and now I can take what I found in Florida and apply it to Massachusetts. It doesn't work that way. So what I've seen a lot of the evolution is the technology and people coming up with bits and pieces and parts of different technology that can support the business. But I haven't really seen, how will I say it? I've seen some that are good potential for leading horses, and those are the ones that we look forward to partner with, because at the end of the day, you're always going to have payments. So we've been here the longest. We're going to continue being here. Now it's just about what partners are we actually working with, to really not only take us and our partnership where we want to go, but take this industry where we all want it to go, which is federally approved, in something that is not, looking like it's a bad space to be in.
How
So it
did
was a long-winded question or answer. Sorry.
No, it's all relevant. It's all important. How did you find yourself in the cannabis industry? I mean, everyone's got their own unique story.
Yeah.
Years ago coming in, what was that like?
Gosh, so I entered in a couple years ago, mainly from a private investment perspective, right? We were looking at it. Both my husband and I are actually in this space, and we came from traditional. And it was more so for personal investing. And you're looking at the market and seeing where it's going. And then once it turned into, from an investment perspective, the more you start digging into this space, because you have to understand where you're investing, the more you start realizing that for me, there were so many things that I could do to help and to contribute, not only to Hypur, but then also to the community, to the technology, right? To everyone, because it's still a very small industry, and I think it will be for a long time. That I thought, with what I knew coming from the traditional market, there was opportunity to not repeat some of those things that didn't go so well, but then also to be able to apply those things that did go well and did work well in traditional. So that to me was one of the main reasons I looked at it. I met Christopher, gosh, probably about 8-10 months ago, and we were in communication, and I learned about Hypur and what they were doing. And then it just came the right opportunity where, where we're going is changing from the banking, like I talked about, where we started, to a consumer focused product, right? Because that's what it needs to be at the end of the day, so that consumers can feel safe in paying for the product. And so it was just perfect timing to say, okay, come in, help us kind of rebrand, and then go to market where we can create a better consumer experience, as well as a better experience for our merchants.
And
So.
and with COVID going on, what has that been like for Hypur? Have you seen sales jump online? Have you seen them jump, I'd say in person, but we know that the standard dispensary experience is changing now. People are ordering online. They're doing a drop pickup at the store. What has it been like for Hypur during the pandemic?
Huge. I mean, huge growth, because before, like we were talking about, people are using cash. Now think about the cost of cash, right? I think for us, it was exponential growth, just because when you're going online and ordering, it's easier to pay in a digital manner versus having to wait. And then, are you within 6 feet? Where do you leave your money for the delivery person, or when you go pick up? That for us, business just crazy, right? Because now it's, you can talk to the Janes and the Dutchies of the world, and they saw an uptick in theirs as well too, because it's now consumers want more of a digital experience, more of an online experience. They certainly still miss working with their bud tenders. And I think now that things are loosening up, they can still do that. But now they have the option of, once they find the products that they want and repeatable, are buying those products, they can just do it touchless, right, in a digital way. So for us, it was huge.
And do you think that things are going to change, or do you think that they're going to pretty much stay this way, for maybe the next year? Some people are estimating that we're going to be, quarantining for at least the next 12 months. What do you think what does the next year look like for Hypur?
Gosh, well, there's two parts for COVID. Yeah, I talked to friends and that are in the medical industry, and they're like, just put 2 years in your mind, right? To just kind of level set your expectation is what I've been told, right? With gradual opening. But I think if you look at it, it takes at least 2 years for FDA regulation and approval anyhow. This is fast tracked, and it's just the facts. Like, could we get something out in a year? Yeah. There's the herd mentality now that school's opening up, that we're going to have more exposure, but then, more natural immunity. So I still think it's a good year, maybe year and a half out, the COVID part of things. For us, for Hypur though, COVID is here, and it's just made us more aware of how we work and how we transact and safety. But for us, our vision, COVID isn't impacting the vision of where we're going. If anything, it's still always going to be touch free, cashless, right? There's coin shortage that's going on today. That's for many different reasons, but it's not going to change anytime soon. So with what we're doing, the more and the more products that we can provide to our consumers in various different ways for them to pay, is going to lead to nothing but growth for us, growth for our partners, growth for the merchants that we work with, and then again, more acceptability within this regulated space, right? We're not trying to change a consumer behavior. If you're used to paying online or paying with a card, those options will be there.
And so for consumers, how many different states is Hypur in? Are you in all 50 states? How many different dispensaries or shops is the company working with?
Yeah, so we have about 1,000 merchants, is what we call them, that are on our platform today. So I think we're probably in, I would say 10, 11 states. Big, huge push in California. Obviously, we're in Arizona, and then making our way now to Massachusetts and to Florida. And that really comes through partnerships, right? Because it's our partners that introduce us to the merchants that need the banking support and the compliance. So it's growth wise and state wise, I think we're only going to continue to be able to grow, right?
Excellent. And so for individuals that want to start to use Hypur, where can they go to find you or to set up?
You can actually, we have a native app that you can download on your phone. So iOS, we're enabled with that, and Android, and you find Hypur. You can download. You'll only be able to connect to it, obviously, when you're in a regulated state or a state that is able to sell cannabis. That's got to be the caveat. But you can download the app. You enter in your information, and then you're off and running. It's very simple.
And consumers can feel confident that everywhere they're shopping has been vetted, the due diligence has been done.
Yeah. If you see Hypur Pay, the onboarding of a merchant for us is really, it's a big transaction of all the information that they have, all the regulatory, all the compliance that is needed, and it's everything that we vet out, and then also the banking, and we package for the banks to be able to do the same. So everyone that we're banking with has gone through a full compliance screening, right, multiple times, and continues to do so.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate that.
Yeah.
We need to bring as much transparency into this industry and as much regulation as possible, so that we can all grow together and be the best industry that we possibly can be.
Yeah, exactly. I think we're gonna, like we were talking before, this industry is gonna be here for a long time. Hopefully we look back on it one day going, hey, yeah, I was a part of that.
And do you guys have dreams of going overseas some days and really expanding?
Yeah, yeah, actually, absolutely. I mean, you're asking where we're going in the next year. That is one of them of going international. So coming in, we've been heavily focused on cannabis, heavily focused on finance. Now where we're going is really consumer based. So really, making sure our consumers understand who we are and what we do, because it's easy to get lost in banking jargon or technology jargon, and so we're looking to change that. But then we're also looking across other regulatory markets, right? So there's a lot that are out there that are underserved. So here nationally is expansion of cannabis, and then adoption throughout other regulatory markets, and then international as well too. I think who wouldn't be able to, or who doesn't need some transparency and compliance, right? And cashless on top of that.
You got to avoid those bank fees at all costs.
Yes, exactly.
All right. Well, thank you so much. Is there anything else that you would like the audience to know about the company, or any other thoughts you want to leave us with?
No, I think the biggest thing is as people are looking at this space is you really have to be deliberate. Not only in the product and where you're buying it, and certainly black market, you've seen enough issues that are going on there. Um, but I think you really need to look for providers and companies and services that are legit, right? And that to me is the most important thing when I think about it. Even when we talk to our partners or talk to other people, it's the more transparent, the more compliant, and the more we do our part, right, as a cannabis community, whether consumer, provider, whatever it is. um, I think the more of a chance we have to be able to decriminalize, but then to demystify, and to really just help people get the product that they need, right? Whether it's recreational or whether it's medical, and the benefits that it has.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for your time. I really
Okay.
enjoyed speaking with you, and I look forward to telling our audience all about Hyper.
All right. Awesome. Good talking to you.
Talking to you too. Take care.